How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today on the pod, we're going to be talking with Parker Spencer. Parker is the Project Podium head coach for USA Triathlon. He is also the team manager for the Stars and Stripes, Super Tri team, and he does a lot of different things that have to do with just molding, shaping, and helping to positively impact younger male triathletes in the pipeline who eventually want to go to the Olympics and beyond. So it's a really good conversation. We talk about a lot of different things, including, of course, family and triathlon, and just a little sociology, cultural understanding, world traveling, a lot of things. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Mr. Parker. So Parker, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I guess first things first, you just were telling me you were caught in some meetings at ASU. What's going on?
Yes, sorry, it just froze up for a second.
No, you're good. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm back in Arizona now. We've kind of been all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So I like my house that I actually own is in Arizona, but I've been here 5 days since the end of May. So,
Oh, wow.
and it is obviously it's November right now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's just been a really busy year, but part of that is just getting things going again at ASU because that is a big part of the Project Podium program. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just had a few meetings that I got caught up in at ASU.
Yeah.
So I get to do this podcast from my truck.
Yeah. No, it's all good. The audio actually sounds pretty good. I guess you have
Okay.
like a newer iPhone or something.
Yeah, I do.
Nice. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
blessing. Good, man.
Yeah, for sure.
So 6 months away from home, you're traveling a ton. Like, how many travel days do you typically have per year? Do you know?
I haven't counted it up uh this year yet, but last year I traveled 33 weeks out of the year.
Holy cow.
And this year I think is more.
Yeah.
So it has been I've I've been able to bring my family on a lot of it, so
Mm-hmm.
that's been good this year. And
Yeah.
we were just in Europe for 2 months, and so I've got a 5 and 2-year-old, so they got to
Yeah.
come with and got to see a little bit of all of the sport. So it was everything from World Triathlon draft legal stuff
Mm-hmm.
to Super Tri to Ironman World Champs in Nice, and then the Xterra World Championships in Italy. So
Yeah.
just kind of seeing it all.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Well, traveling, I'm sure, especially with the family, there's a lot of balancing responsibilities there with like being a dad, being a leader, being a team
Yeah,
manager. So how do you begin to balance all of those things?
yeah. I mean, it definitely is a challenge, and I think both my wife and I like didn't regret at all having the family come, especially knowing that I was going to be gone for that long. It
Sure.
was important for us all to be together. But yeah, it was like all of the awesome challenges that come with traveling with toddlers
Yeah.
overseas.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like I just was at a Super Tri Neom and then a World Cup in Japan, and I did that by myself. And it was just like, whoa, traveling is so much more relaxing when you don't have the kids to worry about.
Yeah.
Um, but it was good. Like, they did really good on the plane. Just kind of, like, trying to keep them entertained as much as I could.
Yeah.
And, uh, but yeah, I think from a balance standpoint, I think that's just gonna always be a struggle
Mm.
when you're kinda in this industry and then also just trying to do ambitious things.
Yeah.
And, I think some days I'm way better at it than others. And, thankfully, I've got an amazing wife who um, knew that this was the path that we were going to take before we got married. And so she kind of knew what this all looked like, and uh, before she got herself really into it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I think it's super important to have that, or fortunate that you had that kind of pre-context to kind of go into the marriage and to share with each other to like, okay, this is our goal. Because when I first got married, I kind of roped my wife into some of the entrepreneurial activities, whether she liked it or not. And it wasn't the greatest thing for our marriage in the beginning. We've come a long way and we've worked through it, but I think that's really mature of you guys. How long ago did you get married, and how old were you when you got married, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so I was 25 when we got married, and that was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was kind of the athletes that have given me a hard time about it, but I uh I met her and started dating her a month later, and then we got engaged 3 months after that.
Oh, so you
And
knew.
then yeah, so I was like, all right, yep, this is the one. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And yeah, and thankfully she didn't think I was too crazy and said yes.
Yeah.
And she was living we it was a long distance thing, so I just didn't
Yeah.
want to have to basically for our whole dating relationship, which wasn't super long. She lived in Atlanta, I lived in Richmond, and we were flying back and forth all the time. And
Yeah.
so it was she moved to Richmond, Virginia, which is where I was working at the time
Yeah.
as a triathlon coach there. And then we've kind of moved around quite a bit until we ended up here in Arizona.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think some people do give a hard time to that type of decision making, but when you're as old as you are, it seems like you got a good head on your shoulders. Obviously, you've already kind of got a career path. Being able to strike while the iron is hot, I think says a lot about just the kind of future you can build with somebody for sure.
Yeah, totally.
So
So,
let me, I want to rewind a little bit just to kind of get a little bit more context, I guess, for who you are. And then we're going to dive into a lot of things as long as time allows us. So if ever you
cool.
need to cut it off, you just do so.
Yes, that sounds good. All good.
Sweet. So I have a little bit of context now to understand like what it is you do, but in
Yep.
your words, who is Parker Spencer?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say in a nutshell, I'm a husband, father, and coach.
Hmm.
And um and I think like from my family's super important to me. And and that's been kind of obviously we're still a little bit new to it. My oldest is only 5.
Yeah.
Um but I do think that there's a lot of challenges that come with coaching at the elite level with family, but then there's also a lot of really cool things that come with it too. And my kids get to grow up around a really positive sport,
Mm.
and around ambitious people that want to accomplish big goals and dream big. And from a coaching standpoint, um, and I mean, I even re-emphasized this with the athletes in a team meeting recently, but like, yeah, USA Triathlon has hired me to develop young men to have the capability of winning a medal at the Olympic Games. So it's
Mm.
a really big job, but um, I want to develop them as people first and then
Mm.
athletes second. And I think like I do think that if I focus on developing them as people, then they're going to be better athletes for it.
Mm.
And that's a really big I think for me, at the end of the day, like, hopefully, I'm 100 years old when my time on Earth is done, and when I look back, is it gonna be like, "Oh, sick, like, we won some medals at the Olympic Games or at the biggest races in the world," or am I gonna say, like, "I got to make an impact on some other people's lives?"
Mm.
And I think, like, the people that I know that are older and even the donors that help fund our program, like, I think at the end of the day, people just wanna make impact on other people, and I feel really fortunate that I get to do that every single day.
Mm.
And I've got a really strong relationship with the athletes that I coach, um, and, like I said before, like, some days I'm better at this than others, and but I think for me as a person, like, I wanna be known as someone who cares about people and has an impact on these young guys' lives that I get to work with, but
Mm.
also that I get to do it in a really cool way, which is be an elite triathlon coach and try to win some races while we do it.
Yeah. Wow. So much to say there. First of all, I just want to comment briefly. I think it is cool that you're getting to raise a family in that context. Because I started traveling at a relatively young age. Just I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity, but I can see it's 2020 vision now. Going to foreign countries and interacting with cultures at young ages is like such an important thing. I think for kids to see and to be able to develop. Because whenever if we were ever stuck in one area for too long, I think we get kind of sedentary and forget that we're all a bit different. And there's so much good things there. But then also what you're saying with the whole concept of people developing people first and then athletes second, that philosophy, is that something that you've held close and have defined or
Yeah.
yeah, had for a long time? Like, where did that come from?
Well, the whole reason I became a coach is because, like, the people who had the biggest impact on my life were the people who were my coaches.
Mm,
And, like, my college coach and the coach that I had right after college, like, both of those guys had the biggest impact on my life and who I am as a coach, but a person and a husband and father. Like, I gotta watch them do that. Um, and I originally was a pre-law major, like, planning on going to law school, and, um, and then I remember, like, my I was, like, in my first semester of my junior year of college, and I went I went home and told my parents, like, "I think I've made a big mistake. I think I'm
mm,
in the wrong major," and my dad's like, "If you could do anything and money wasn't, like,
there's no object.
part of the goal, like, what would you do?" And I was like, "I'd coach," and he's like, "Well, then that's what you need to do." So I switched my major to exercise science and, at that point had kinda already gone all in on triathlon and, but my college coach, uh, I ran, uh, track and cross country at Liberty University,
Hmm.
and, I went and talked to my college coach about it, and at that point, I was also like, I was just good enough to be a walk-on, like, I wasn't, like, anybody making a big difference as far as points and stuff go, but
Sure.
I'd like to think that I was a good teammate and someone who helped the other athletes on the team be better, um, and I sat down with him and told him that I was what I was thinking about doing with my major, but then I also was thinking about walking away from running and kinda going all in on triathlon, and he was just super cool about it, and we took some time to think through it together, and we, left it for 3 days, and then I came back, and then he encouraged me to kinda do what I was passionate about,
Mm.
and, I got to reconnect with him earlier this year,
Oh,
uh,
cool.
and it was just really cool to, uh, like, Liberty kinda goes all in when it comes to their club sports, so it's not like a lot of other schools where it's kind of a student-led thing, like, they hire coaches, they have big budgets for their club programs, and they treat it kinda like another NCAA program,
Hmm.
and, I went there for an award ceremony earlier this year, and he was someone who, presented me in front of everyone, and it was just kinda cool, like, full circle moment for me
Yeah, sure.
where got this guy who the whole reason I became a coach was because of him, and then 10 years or so later, it's even more than that, uh yeah, like 15 years or something. I had the opportunity to stand in front of a bunch of people and just say how much he meant to me. So,
Yeah, that's
it,
special.
yeah, so my philosophy on coaching is really because of that guy
Yeah.
and the impact that he had on my life. And it's like, man, if I can do that for other people, uh, then it'll give my life some a little bit more purpose.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so important and so powerful too, because so many people are searching for that purpose. And you said something that
Mhm.
really kind of hit me as a lesson that I've learned in the past few years too, is this concept of, you said you were kind of a walk on, weren't necessarily like the star player or whatever, but being a supporting athlete that is also talented, but also that offers really probably what 90% of being an athlete is. It's like you're prepping your mental abilities, the way that you treat people, that character, and then you kind of put all that together to have the confidence to go out and to perform on the field. I don't think there's enough This is kind of the lesson I think that you're talking about. So I don't think there's enough spotlight put on the second and third tier people who are a part of the teams or the coaches and stuff, because we see all of like the star athletes, but the
Yeah.
people that support them, even in business, like oftentimes some of the most effective leaders are not the ones that are necessarily at the pinnacle of the pyramid. They're kind of the ones silently whispering into the leaders' ear, like, "Hey, like, have we considered this?" And they don't live in the limelight, but their power is unmatched. So I think that's a really cool kind of
Yeah.
mentality to have.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's like one of the kind of our team principles or like team goals that we have here is that like I think in a daily training environment with a bunch of guys the same age that have the same goal, it can very easily get too competitive and um like super like alpha male type mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't feel like we have any of that here. And a big part of that is because um I've told all the guys I want them to come to every single session with the goal of making everyone else around them better.
Mm,
Like that their main goal is like, okay, here's the times and here's the purpose of the session, but your main priority is to make sure that other guys have a great workout that day.
mm,
And I and then what they kind of selfishly get in return is now you've got 10 other guys that are showing up wanting to make sure you have the best workout of your life.
yeah.
And I think that that support that they have for each other is something that we've developed over time, and I think it's why we've had our most successful year yet this year.
Yeah.
And it's just a positive place to be around. Like I think some people think like to be great at the sport, you just got to be in the grind every day, and like sometimes it's not like the majority of the time it's not fun, and that your training environment doesn't have to be all like everybody doesn't have to be friends and stuff like that. But I think the opposite. I really think that it needs to be a good support system. And the fact is, like, some people are gonna have great races, some are gonna have bad, some are gonna have great years, and
Mm,
others are gonna have bad years. And um like my relationship with them matters a lot with helping them through the low times, but their relationship with their teammates is probably even more important
yeah.
because those are the guys that they're living with and with even more than me.
Yeah. And after the seasons and the retirements come, like those relationships hopefully will still stand the test of time beyond
Yeah.
when the retirement day comes. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a hard thing. That's a lot of culture there. So I guess I want to hear, if it's possible, your story when it comes to, your dad gave you that kind of wise advice, like, hey, maybe that's what you should be going for. Can you just tell some of the story of how you took that marching order, you went to kind of search to take that exercise science, and then, you eventually find yourself at USAT. What does that story arc look like that ended up leading to the ambition stuff that you're doing now?
Yeah. Yeah, I think because I wasn't that star athlete myself, like or and wasn't didn't have this amazing pro triathlon career and then got into coaching. Um I knew then I needed to be really smart with how I was coaching and like understand the sports psychology and the sports physiology behind all of it. And I also saw where sports science was really headed, and it was like this was obviously like before even all the Norwegian stuff and how everything has gotten super popular with sports science.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when exercise science was really starting to become
A science.
like more of a degree program, and like kinesiology has always been around, but it wasn't quite like the sports science degrees that we have now. And I think, yeah, so I went all in with that, and the science part of it really intrigued me. And so I got my bachelor's degree from Liberty, and then got a master's degree from Concordia University, Irvine, in California. And that was in coaching and exercise science. So it was really cool being able to blend the two
Hmm.
together. And all of the degree program, you used your occupation, and like, so all of my assignments had to do with triathlon coaching. So it was really relevant. And then I'm almost done with my coursework for my PhD in exercise science. And
Oh, wow. So you're doing that
so
right
it's
now?
yeah, yeah. So
Sheesh.
yeah. So it's I'm just kind of taking my time with it and making sure that I'm I'm doing it right and learning while I'm doing it, and not just trying to check a box and get the PhD. But that's just important to me to always be learning, always
Hmm.
make sure that I do know what the latest and greatest is out there for my athletes, and then um, so from the bachelor's degree standpoint, also most of the triathlon coaches that I had met and been around, it was their second or third career. They had had something before, and they were all older. And it's kind of weird. Been doing this since 2011,
Hmm.
and I'm still one of the youngest guys on the circuit doing it. So it's a little concerning. There's not a lot of like up and comers like trying to coach at this level.
Hmm.
And it's still kind of like the old school guys are still kind of dominating it from a coaching standpoint. And the guys that have been around for a long time. And I what my hope was that if I went all in on coaching super young, that by the time I was done with my career, then I would have accomplished something big. And I was fortunate to get a job as a full-time triathlon coach right out of college. And I think some people struggle to make it and as a coach and pay bills and support a family. And I was able to do that right out of college and work for Endorphin Fitness in Richmond, Virginia,
Hmm.
and worked for Michael Harlow, and he was a really good mentor of mine there. And kind of rose through the ranks in that company over the 4 years, and like was making a better living than I ever thought possible in triathlon coaching, and got to coach at the draft legal junior level, junior and youth level for a while, and then some of my athletes earned their elite license and started competing on the circuit. And I think, like most people do when they first get into their career, the longer they're into it, it starts to narrow their focus a little bit on what they enjoy and what they're really into. And
Hmm.
I realized I really wanted to coach at the highest level and with athletes that were really motivated. And around that same time, Liberty called me back, and they had um, their triathlon coach had just left, and they wanted to see if I was interested. But I had established a really good life in Richmond and a solid career, so I kind of did it remotely for a little bit.
Hmm.
And then I recruited. Um, I really wanted to be able to compete with the biggest schools in collegiate club triathlon, and to do that, like Liberty's like a private Christian university, like it's kind of a niche university, and to be able to kind of compete on the same level with some of these bigger public schools, I needed to come up with a really good strategy on how to do that. And uh, what I did is I literally went to the World Triathlon rankings, and
Hmm.
anybody who was college age, I sent them uh, emails and messages and um, over social media. And Liberty's got incredible facilities. Like there's a 50-meter indoor natatorium in the same building as a 200-meter indoor track, and one of the best in the country. And
Wow.
they've got big budgets, and I knew I could have a really solid triathlon program there. And so I had 9 elite athletes from 9 different countries on the team. Um, and then I explained to Liberty, okay, I want to make this my full-time job, like, and for me to move, here's what I would need. And because Liberty is about 2 hours away from Richmond. And so basically I told them that here's the budget that I want. I want to have an elite team, but I'll coach a club team with like age groupers that just want to do this for fun to fund it. And I knew some inside information on like how much profit margin the university makes on each student athlete or each student in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew I needed to recruit 45 kids to do the sport, to pay for an elite team and pay for our team and pay for my salary and all of that.
And
And
okay.
and then by the time I left, we had almost 100 kids on the between that team, and I was also coaching the cycling and swim program there
Yeah.
too. And so it way more than paid for itself. And one of my athletes won the European Junior Championships and then won the U23 European Championships, and that was a really big deal. And I started to learn a whole lot about U23 triathlon and coaching young men at that age. I didn't really try to recruit women only because of the NCAA movement and knowing that the university didn't want an NCAA triathlon program, and so I'd basically be fighting like
Right.
a battle that I didn't think I could win when it came to recruitment,
Right.
and there wasn't a lot of options for men. And so then we started to have some success, in a program that was like 100th at Collegiate Club Nationals got 5th, and we kept moving up, and I had really strong athletes on the team. And so, yeah, my wife and I had moved from Richmond to do that full time. But like, I think sometimes people think that like even positions that I'm in now is kind of like handed to you and it's just easy. And
Mm-hmm.
you have like, you have solid funding and you get to do things that a lot of other people don't. But like, you have to grind so hard in order to get to that point. And with Liberty, even though we had like solid budgets and stuff like that, like I wasn't able to give full scholarships and pay for room and board and stuff like that for athletes. And so to really make it work and to have a really competitive team, and with the whole mentality that we want to make a positive impact on athletes' lives, like my wife and I had 4 of them live with us for a year.
Wow.
And so she was like a huge trooper, and like we don't regret it, but probably not like the most ideal thing to do in your second year of marriage is to have
A
4
bunch of college kids.
18 and 19-year-old college boys from Spain, Hungary, France,
Yeah.
like living in
My
your
goodness.
house.
Yeah.
And but it was awesome. Like we really enjoyed our time with those guys. And some of them, when they first came, they didn't really they couldn't get into the school because they didn't know English.
Wow.
And so they they came a summer early,
To learn
and
English.
they stayed with me and my wife, and we taught them English. And then they passed their TOEFL tests and got into the university. Uh and
Wow.
like that feels really good because you're the American dream is still alive and real.
Mm.
And like you watch these people from other countries come over, and uh like giving them the opportunity to live their American dream, go to a university and do elite triathlon at the same time, was just like a dream come true. And then over the summer, we would go to Europe. And so we went to we one of the kids was from France, and we stayed in France all summer because as a university coach, I'm not doing anything in the summer because the school's out. And so I recruited while I was over there, and literally did recruitment meetings on the beach in Barcelona, and then
Wow.
went to Venice, Italy, and met with an athlete there. Um and then yeah, like it was another thing to try to recruit kids over email, but when I'm going to their country and sitting down and talking with them, it was a big deal for them and their parents.
Yeah, I'm
And then
sure.
um they raced the World Triathlon Circuit, and then USA Triathlon got a new high performance director. John Farah had just started, and there was this whole idea of a project Podium that the women had NCAA triathlon, but there wasn't a lot of options for men. Uh, Gwen had just won the gold medal in Rio,
Mm-hmm.
Our women were some of the top women in the sport, but our men were still kind of struggling a bit to really be at the top tier. And so, yeah, USAT, uh, they had come up with this plan for Project Podium. And then one of the first things that John was tasked with doing was hiring a coach for it. And um, Bobby McGee was working with USAT at the time, and he called me and he was like, "Why, like, hey, you should consider kind of applying for this." And I was like, I'm like really into what I'm doing at Liberty. I really love it." Um, and he was like, "Well, there's like basically there's either these super top level coaches that want a ridiculous amount of money to do it that USAT can't hire,
Mm-hmm.
or there's other people that aren't qualified and don't have the experience that you have." And at that point, I was one of the only guys in the country that was coaching
At that
under
level.
23-year-old elite men that also was getting college degrees at the same time. So I was kind of like uniquely qualified for the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent some time with the head coach of Canada that year and got to really see what elite triathlon at the highest level looked like, and went to uh, Australia and New Zealand for a month with him and Bobby. And then after that, I was like, okay, I see what Bobby's saying now. If I really want to accomplish what I want to accomplish, then like,
This is the way to do it.
yeah, doing this with Project Podium is the way to do it. And so I went ahead and put in my application, and John called me the next day. And at that point, I was traveling all over with these athletes, and I was like, I did 3 different interviews, and they were in 3 different countries, and it was like midnight in Spain, and I'm on a Zoom call before Zoom was a thing
Oh my
with
goodness.
Barb Lindquist and Bobby McGee, Steve Kelly, and John Farah. And midnight in Spain was fine because the host family we were with still hadn't served dinner at that point because that's Spanish culture.
Yeah, 100%.
And 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 then yeah, they offered me the job, and my wife had never been to Arizona, and so I was like, "Oh, it's amazing! Like, there's it's like palm trees in the desert, and like,
Lots of cactus, the swallow.
yeah." And so I was like, she was like, "Okay, I really want to see it before I commit to like moving to Arizona." So we flew from Europe over to Phoenix, and then literally checked into the hotel and went straight to the pool to meet with John Farah and Cliff English, who's the head coach at ASU.
Mhm.
And it is 120 degrees
Yeah, I was
outside.
gonna say you picked
It's
the
just it's like it's
baking.
June at that point, and it is just like on fire outside. And my we got out of the plane, and my wife looked at me and she's like, "Are you kidding me right now?" It's like, and but then we're on the pool deck talking to both of these guys and talking about ASU, and then Michael Phelps walks by, and I was like,
See,
"Yeah,
hun?
just tell me where to sign." I was
Yeah.
like, I'm good." And she loves it here now. Like, it's been a really good move for her and a really good move for our family. And
Yeah, man.
uh I'll be honest, like, Project Podium was a huge I thought I knew what I was doing when I got into it, and it has a huge learning curve.
Mm,
And um but I think USAT knew that too, that it was a long-term investment. And yeah, you have to kind of learn things the hard way sometimes.
sure.
Uh and that's kind of led us to where we're at today, which is uh like one of the best junior U23 programs in the world at this
Yeah.
point. So,
Well, first of all, that was a beautiful articulation. That was a full blown story. Like, good job putting all that together because I was following it the whole way. So that's awesome.
yeah,
Um,
sorry, that was probably a
no, no,
longer
no.
than
No, it
expected.
was totally good. I wanted to hear that story and it informed a lot of things that I'm just curious about now. So I'm curious with, um, I guess one other thing I should say, I don't know if you would consider yourself one, but I would say you're like a full blown entrepreneur. It sounds like, because when you're describing giving budgets to Liberty, and telling them what you need, there's a lot that goes into just operationally being able to pull that thing, all that into like one package to pitch it to a team to then obviously get the funding, having kids
Yep.
staying at your house. That's just super cool to see that. And I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing. So I guess thank you in a way,
Yeah.
because we do
Thanks.
need these types of things to keep
Yeah.
happening. But now that, you said you started this program, helping build out Project Podium, in a lot of ways you have your fingerprints across it, and you said that you've learned a lot of lessons, and you don't know what you don't know until you figure out that you don't know
Yeah.
it. So what are some of those big mistakes or lessons that have like really defined and helped to shape just your experience and figuring out how to do the right things in this season?
Yeah. I think there's a lot. Like there's some little things and there's some big things, and like I think developing like an elite culture that's also supportive is something that I think that I didn't do great with at first, and have just learned how to do that a whole lot better.
Mm,
And it's just some of it's like little things. The first When we started this program, I had 8 athletes living in a 6-bedroom house together, and it's like then you think, okay, well that's what I did when I was in college. Like I lived with a bunch of other guys, and
right.
um but it's different when you're trying to do this at the elite level, and
Mm,
it's like they're all going to the same practices, and they're coming back to the same house, and they wanna use the same kitchen,
they
and
need
it
space.
like yeah, they need their space, and so we moved them to apartments and did 2-bedroom apartments, with 1 athlete in every room, and, own bathroom and stuff like that, and I think that made a big difference, just with, uh, also just giving them up their own space to be able to, uh, be by themselves if they wanted to a little bit, because it is a lot of togetherness, during the day, and then, I think just from a coaching standpoint, I have learned a whole lot more about the physiology behind sport and
Mm,
how to do this a lot better at the elite level, and I do feel like I've now got a very good handle on what athletes need to do to be able to compete at the highest level, and how to not just make this a cool fitness program where everyone's doing the same thing, that it's very specialized, and we do a lot of physiological testing during the year, and we don't just do it to be flashy or anything. It's like, do this testing, get the numbers, use the numbers that we've got, and put it into the next training block. 6 weeks later to 8 weeks later, test again, see if what we did worked, and move those numbers in the right direction. And um, when we started really implementing that, the results literally went from I took all the athletes to a race in Cuba, and there's 9 of them, and all 9 of them just raced terrible, and I was like, "Okay, well, it's not their fault, like, I'm doing something wrong, like, if
mm,
not one of them had a good race." And it's also not like we're going to, nothing against Cuba, but that's not the where, like, the most competitive races in the world are.
sure.
And so, yeah, I started going all in on the exercise physiology and started working with a guy named Sebastian Weber in Switzerland, and like incredible physiologist, and he kind of revolutionized the way that I coach.
Mm,
And our athletes we've had more podiums this year than I think the last 5 combined. So
wow. What are some
yeah.
of those like things that like really stuck with you to revolutionize the way that you coach? I mean, there's obviously the fundamentals, but were there
Yeah.
things that you just like it changed your thinking on?
Yeah, like, a lot of triathlon coaching is and triathlon training is focused around threshold, and, like, people when you talk about the bike, a lot of people are like, "Okay, what's your FTP?" And
Right.
then you do these power tests, like this 5-minute, 20-minute power test that was developed 20 years ago before people knew what we know today, and people are
Mm,
still using that, and it's like, uh, you're at the end of the day, fitness is metabolism. Like, your body is, um, it's really like, what does your metabolism look like? Where are you getting your energy from? are you more of an anaerobic athlete or are you more of an aerobic athlete? And when you also realize that the two can be independent of each other, and
Hmm.
like your aerobic capacity and your anaerobic capacity, um, like you can have a high anaerobic capacity and you can also have a high aerobic capacity, and it's not like people saying, "Oh, I'm more of a sprinter or I'm more of a diesel." That's true, but that has way more to deal with your anaerobic capacity, and being able to understand those two numbers, and we look at it as VO2 max for aerobic and VLA max for anaerobic. And if I ask an athlete, "What's your FTP?" It actually doesn't really give me much other than just a power number. Like, it's more like, where are you getting your energy from to get to your FTP?
Hmm. Like, is it
And
more anaerobic or more aerobic? Like, what do you burn in?
exactly. Like, and then there's fueling strategies that come from all of that. If your VLA max is higher, um you're burning way more glycogen than you are if it's low. And so when we've done testing, like, it also lets us know on long rides or longer workouts, like, how much carbs per hour the athlete needs to eat. And Um, that's helped a lot from, like, bonking and stuff like that, and just fueling and making sure that they recover from one workout to the next. And then a big thing that changed for us was understanding where you're clearing lactate the quickest. And again, on the bike, like, sitting on the back of the pack at 100 watts actually isn't as efficient for most people than going 200 watts and being mid-pack or something.
At clearing the lactate?
At clearing the lactate and getting off the bike and having a lower lactate and being able to, um, to basically, yeah, just be able to run your best. So, for example, like, one of my guys, we went back to Cuba, and, he knew, like, his lactate clearing number was around 200 watts. It was like, I think it's like 206 for him, and that's where he's clearing and combusting lactate at its highest rate. And so he gets out of the water and it's like, okay, if you have the opportunity, sit at that wattage. And that's what he did. He sat at that wattage and was able to do that the whole time. And he ran a 10K at a faster pace than he's ever run a 5K off the bike.
Hmm. Wow.
And so he's just getting off a whole lot more fresh.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
VLA max, VO2 max, you measure those numbers, you see where how much basically fat versus carbs, and then you let that inform your fueling strategy and then also the strategy, I guess, for how you do short course.
Pacing. Yeah, all of that.
Wow.
So, and it changes a lot. Like, for example, I coached two guys that were in the Paralympic Games, and one of them had a very high VLA max, and one of them, like, his VLA max was, like, non-existent. So their training looked completely different.
Hmm.
And the guy whose VLA max was really low is doing, like, sprinter workouts on the track, all out 100s as hard as he can. And then, the other guy, like, he's got as much anaerobic capacity as he ever needs. And, like, in the testing protocol we use, you do a 3-minute all-out effort at the end of it, and one of the guys, his peak blood lactate was like 5 millimoles, which is, like, hardly anything,
Hmm.
and then the one with the really high VLA max, his blood lactate was over 20,
Oh my
and
goodness.
so, like, in a sprint triathlon, that's actually really dangerous for him because if he goes too hard on the bike and goes just over threshold,
He's gonna
his
blow.
body's producing so much lactate that he's gonna run 2 minutes slower, if running at all, when he gets off the bike, and that's what we were seeing in racing. Meanwhile, Chris Hammer, super low VLA max, get him on the track, start training him like a sprinter. He drops time, like, significant amount of time on his run, and then we go to Paris, and this guy's been trying to get a medal in the Paralympic Games for, uh he's raced in London, he raced in Rio,
Wow.
raced in Tokyo, he was 4th in Tokyo, he was 4th in Rio, and he moved his whole family here to train with us just to try to get a medal. And he won the race in Paris, got a gold medal, and said it was the easiest race I've ever run.
Hmm.
And it's that's what you want.
Yeah.
That's the whole goal.
Yeah, wow. Understanding your body to the next level. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So, switching gears just a little bit, going back to, I guess, like the coaching aspect of this from like a personal level, like it's your job to mold and to shape that these guys into the pipelines. Like you're a part of, I guess, a team that does the recruitment. You pick the people who are going to be on the team. What do you do to look for as a like signs of success and potential for people that are being brought onto the team, and then once people are
Yeah.
on the team?
Yeah, and that's another thing that I've changed a lot since I started this, where I used to try to find this cookie cutter triathlete and everyone be the same. And they all hit the same swim, bike, run standards. And one of the things that we changed is like, okay, what if there's someone who's like decent at two of the sports but just exceptional at one? And then you bring an exceptional swimmer in, an exceptional cyclist, an exceptional runner, and now everyone has a training partner that without a doubt is making them a better athlete.
Mhm.
And there's no one athlete here that's just above and beyond everyone else. Everyone has someone in one of the three sports that's better than them. And so some with that said, there is some things that are kind of like non-negotiables, because like you do have to you do have to like running, for example, like you have to meet a certain standard, or it's just going to be really hard to bring someone from a 17-minute 5K to like sub 14-minute 5K.
Yeah, no
But
kidding.
so I really like for an 18-year-old to be able to run 14:40 5K or faster before being on the team. And then and that's at 18 years old, and that's preferably in high school. Or if it's a 3,200-meter time, then it's sub 9 minutes for 3,200. And like we've got Porter Medall, who ran 8:41, one of the fastest 3,200s in the country in high school. Reese Vandersum has this state record, or did. I don't know if it's changed since he's graduated, but in the 3,200. And so, like, obviously, at the end of the day, you have to be able to run in order for you to be able to win. And I think specifically for LA is most likely going to be a runner's race. Like, I don't think the course is dynamic enough for there to be a big breakaway, but
Mhm.
I could be wrong, and there could be. But um, especially with some of these other guys that are now coming up, and you look at Hayden Wild, Alex Eve, they're like running in the 13:20s for 5K. Then you look at one of the new guys from GB, Hugo Milner. He just ran 28:40 off the bike in Spain at the World Champs. One of the I think it is the fastest 10K ever run off the bike in a legitimate
Race.
Olympic distance triathlon. And like as soon as that guy really dials in his swim and bike, like he's gonna be
A force to be
really
reckoned with.
dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you got to have runners. And I do feel like I'm willing to bring someone on who doesn't have as big of a swim background as what might be typical. But with that said, I've got Carter Stolmacher, who's one of the best open water swimmers in the world. I put him in super tri races against the best in the world, and he's been top three out of the water in multiple of them. And um, he leads out of most world triathlon races that he does. But then he also ran 15 minutes off the bike at the Junior World Championships last year. So he's got a really, really bright future. So yeah, like I think when it comes to recruitment, it's what do they bring to the table? Sullivan Middle, for example, one of the best cyclists I think in the world in triathlon. Like he's very, very strong. Like we were just in Japan, and he's still learning how to swim at that next level. Like he's now got it pretty dialed in at the Connie Cup level. Now it's time to move him up to World Cup, and there's still quite a bit of a deficit there. So this guy is solo, and he's putting time on the front pack and gaining time on all of these top guys that are all working together. And he brought 20 seconds back to them and
Yeah.
had the fastest bike split in the race. But he's also a really, really solid runner, and his swim is coming along big time. So yeah, so it's just like it's kind of putting puzzle pieces together when it comes to a team,
Hmm.
and like how can these guys work together to make each other better? And then can we get multiple guys that are at the highest level and can compete with the best in the world? And I really think we have that here.
Yeah. Wow. Super fascinating. For you, as you continue to, I guess, push in this foray, obviously you have your sights set on 2028. Like, that is the sole definition of your job. Like, when it comes down to it, is to help those guys get there and to support them the whole way. After this Olympic cycle, and maybe you can't share this or aren't willing to share this, but I would imagine, like as a father, as you know, a guy like you've been going to work now since 2011 on this stuff, and like you said, you're traveling 32 weeks or more out of the year. Do you ever think that you'd want to take a step back to like do other things, or is that even in remotely in your view at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and one that my wife and I have obviously talked through. And because the other thing is we leave here over the summer and we move to Park City, Utah every summer. And
That's
so we
big.
move up into the mountains, and we um we have really good connections there, great facilities to train with, and we've got some donors that really take care of us while we're there. And um and it's good for my family, like it works out for them, but we are leaving our home, and we're there for 3 to 4 months every summer. And Arizona does things weird with school where like they only have 8 weeks off for summer break. So then the school year starts in mid
Gross.
July.
Yeah.
And I think it's because you can't do anything outside here in the
Yeah, it's
summer.
just so hot. Yeah.
Yeah. So even I mean that like literally 2 nights ago, my wife and I were talking about like, all right, we got like what does this look like? Because our daughter's going into first grade next year, and we homeschooled her this semester, and then she's now that we're back in Arizona, they let us put her back in kindergarten right away. But we're like, okay, we need to talk to her school to see if they will like let us homeschool and then put her into first grade when we get back to Arizona.
Yeah.
And it makes it like all that said, it just makes it a little bit more complicated with family.
Hmm.
Um and not being able to really have a good training environment in Arizona year round. And so yeah, I I do think like right now I'm set on LA. Like my eyes are like fully focused on that, and I think once we get there we'll just decide. Right now her and my agreement is like let's get to LA and then decide what it looks like after that.
Yeah.
Um but like I love what I get to do every day.
Hmm.
And I like don't I don't really turn triathlon off. Like
Yeah.
I'm like super obsessed with it, and like I think about it all the time, and I never get tired of it. So I get tired of the travel and stuff like that and the airplanes, but like I never get bored with the sport. And so triathlon will be my life, I think, for
The
the rest of
foresee.
my life.
Sure.
But I don't know what that looks like, if it's more coaching at a age group level after this, or if it's just doing things differently than how I do them now.
Yeah.
But
Good answer. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I would just
yeah,
I can't imagine you know, I don't have children. I would consider myself somewhat of a busy person, but then having kids and everything else, and then it's just you manage so much, which kind of leads me to my next question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you manage the Stars and Stripes team
yep,
slash coach for that as well with
yep,
Super Try. So, how in the world does that fit in your world?
yeah, yeah. So Project Podium and Super Try started like a strategic partnership last year.
Okay.
And Super Try is investing really heavily in the US, and they're trying to break into the US market. They're buying multiple races. They're about to announce another race in the US that they just acquired.
Nice.
And especially as we're building to LA, like a lot of our goals are the same. Like I'm building athletes to LA, and honestly, a lot of this really started with Nick Chase, and Nick managed the Warriors team last year. Uh, Nick and I started working together because then he allowed some of my Project Podium guys to race on the Warriors, and it was just like the best experience for them.
Yeah.
Like just all around. Like you got these idols that they see like Vince Louis and Alex E and Hayden Wild, and then now they're sitting across a breakfast table with them and are having a like a casual conversation, and like these guys like they have an impact on a young athlete, like, and it makes it seem like, oh man, that's maybe not as far away from what I'm capable of than I think,
Mm.
or
Yeah, it
that
brings it
life
down
is
to the
not a
human
lot
level.
different. Yeah, totally. And just the dynamics of Super Try, it's fast paced, super hard uh bike courses, like very dynamic, very narrow. You can't really make mistakes. You make one mistake and your race is pretty much over. And uh, even though like my guys were getting eliminated earlier than others, it like I literally this year, for example, Reese Fannerson raced in London. I think he was like the first or second athlete eliminated. Like made it through 2 rounds, like did super well, like younger than anybody else in the men's race. And so he like kind of got his butt kicked. Like he was there, and then 6 days later, races his second World Cup in Valencia, has the fastest run split out of some of the best runners in the sport,
Mm-hmm.
and has the second best result USA Triathlon has ever had a junior get in a World Cup, and the best since 2012. So it's like a huge breakthrough race, and that's just 6 days after. And
Yeah.
I think for him, it's like I just raced against the best in the world.
Yeah.
Like,
Really give you another notch
yeah,
that you didn't know you had.
totally.
Yeah.
And so for me, that whole partnership with them has been all about giving my athletes opportunity to race. And I think this year I had a lot of non-Americans on the team and some older athletes or some more established. And that like you have to get something started and you have to build a foundation before it can really be what you want it to be.
Mm.
And so this year for me was all about building the foundation of Stars and Stripes, giving my athletes an opportunity to race if the opportunity presented itself, but not at the detriment of the other athletes that were on the team. Because if I put much less qualified athletes on the team, then we're obviously not going to compete well, and then that's like quite a bit of money in Super Try for some of these top athletes. And so it worked out really well for Reese to race, and then next year I hope to put like 2 or 3, give them the opportunity to race,
Mm-hmm.
if not more. And I think it's just for me, it's just another part of the whole LA strategy. And the guys at Super Try are just awesome. Like I've loved working with them. They're super motivated to do big, ambitious, like crazy things.
Yeah.
Like it was a fun circuit for me, and uh, the athletes that I got to work with this year were just like super fun and awesome to get to know. Um, and then when we did a training camp in Girona, pretty much everyone lives there. So it was like cool for the whole team to also get to know some of those athletes, uh, and just a little bit more of like a mentorship type thing. So yeah, all in all, it's all connected to Project Podium. Like
Yeah.
I have no weird like other ambitions of like me being like, honestly, like Nick is so much better at that camera stuff than me. Like
Yeah.
he like killed it last year,
Yeah, he loves
and
being
it's
in front of
like,
it. He's good at it.
yeah. And I'm like being a team manager is just a lot of camera time, and I'm more of like on race day, I'm more of a consistent type. Like I try not for my highs to be super high and my lows to be super low.
Sure.
And just for my athletes to know like, hey, this is about development. And even if you have a bad race, like it's
That's
not
okay.
the end of the world. And then super tries was a challenge for me because they want you to be just this
Yeah.
dynamic character in
They
front
want
of
the
the.
emotion. They want the F1 experience. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And but it worked out well, and we'll do it again next year. And um, yeah,
Yeah. Cool, man. That's so cool. So just a couple of questions really quick, and then I'll let you go because I'm sure you got things to do and family to see. But right now, like if you were to just exit the sport, you would be remembered for a lot of really amazing things. Project Podium being one of them.
yeah,
I don't think that would be any. I don't think that would not happen. So for you, like, what do you want to be remembered for? Is there anything
yeah.
else that you are really trying to drive home that hasn't stuck yet?
Um, yeah, not maybe like I I kind of opened this podcast up with is like I really if 15 years later my athletes can feel about me the way that I feel about my college coach, then I've done what I want to do.
Hmm.
And um and it's like there's so much up and downs in elite triathlon. Like I've seen every single guy coach at awesome highs, breakthrough races, like
Right.
and like just loving their life. And then where like stuff goes wrong and they travel 30 hours to get crashed out by someone else in the race that
Mm.
wasn't their fault, or they get sick. And we've had some athletes like get one of them got Epstein-Barr virus, which is just
Oh my.
it has a lot of fatigue and everything else around it and can be hard to bounce back from. And it's like, then like you go to these weird countries with like poor water quality, and like one of our guys got a parasite from the water and
Oh
had
my.
to take this crazy medication and to try to kill it all. And it's just like you get to see them at their best and you get to see them at their worst. And I think it's super fun and motivating to be known as the coach that's like coaching athletes that are at the top. But I want to be also be remembered for the guy who was like there when things were not going well.
Hmm.
And like I tell my guys before, like, yeah, I want to be really good for you when you're winning, but like when you're not, like I want to be like in the trench with you, like
Yeah.
trying to fix things and get you to a good spot.
Yeah.
And so I think I have one of the coolest jobs. I can't think of a better job for myself, like of what I would want, because I get to do elite sport, but then I also get to help develop young people. And I'm the first person that they experience outside of their parents' home. And
Mm.
I really get to be the guy that helps them grow up. Like they don't they don't go to normal college, which is kind of a soft entry into adulthood, where it's like you show up and there's a dining hall that someone prepared a bunch of food for you and all of that. Like these guys show up and they live in an apartment and need to know how to cook for themselves. And
Mm.
a lot of them don't. And so you gotta like help teach them what's healthy in a grocery store and like how to go grocery shopping and not just wander around for hours trying to find something.
Yeah.
So, or just be super strategic and use Amazon Prime or like the Walmart app and have your groceries sent to you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Be more efficient. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's super cool, man. Because like, so I'm 32 now, and when I'm thinking about the some of the greatest mentors I have still to this day, they were introduced and started impacting my life when I was from the ages of 18 to 23. And so you're in a lot of ways like very much a father figure, mentor. Not just a
Yeah.
coach, which I guess that's what a coach is, right? But and you've said
Totally.
it.
And yeah, and at the same time they are still like 18, 19, 20 years old and they're going to make mistakes, and it's like important for me to also like call those mistakes out, keep
Mm,
them accountable, make sure that they're moving in the right direction as people and athletes, and then move past it and be like, all right, yep, let's learn from it and move on.
yeah.
But I think it's like for me, it's not just about being this cool like friend, like older friend or something. It's like it's just kind of all encompassing. It's uh, there's a discipline aspect to it. And it's like, I really want them to walk away having learned how to be resilient, learned how to, what it truly means to persevere, and then, what it means to have discipline. And I really think if they can walk away from this program and they've learned resilience, they've learned perseverance, they've learned discipline, then no matter what they're going to do with their life, they're going to be more successful at it.
Well said. So, in closing, then, given all of your experience for what you are doing specifically, and you mentioned quite a while back that there is not enough, I guess, young people interested in getting into this level of
Mhm.
elite coaching. So, what kind of advice would you give to your younger self or to someone out there who is interested in maybe getting into this but doesn't feel like, oh, I'm not sure I have it in me? Like, what should they do to get started in that field and start pushing to that
Yeah.
place?
Honestly, what I've learned the most is there are no handouts, and there's no, I didn't just get lucky and apply for a job and someone give me a chance. I think it's, you got to go out there and like you said, kind of from an entrepreneurship standpoint, entrepreneurship is all about going out and making something for yourself that didn't exist before,
Mm.
and working hard to build the future that you want for yourself. And I think triathlon coaching is no different. And for me, what it took was I reached out to a coach I really respected and that was doing things at the highest level and had really successful athletes.
Mm.
And I had, I called him up and I said, can I come learn from you? And I'll, I will be your assistant coach for free for as long as you'll have me. And I spent uh, 10 days with him in his training environment. And then I went to 2 World Cups with him in Australia and New Zealand over a month. And I learned a lot from that, but then I feel like it put me into, around some of the people that were the biggest decision makers in the sport as well. And for me personally, if I was hiring somebody, there's so many people that say what they want to do, but then they don't actually go out there and try to do it.
Mm.
And I think triathlon coaching is a lot of the same thing. I see a lot of people on social media and stuff say that oh, I want to do this and I want to do that from a coaching standpoint, and or USAT coach ed needs to do this for me, and USAT coach ed needs to do better at this, and it's like, dude, no one's gonna go out there and give it to you.
Yeah, go get
You
it.
got to go out and make your career what you want. And for me, what it took was telling someone I'm going to be your assistant coach for free, and him becoming a great mentor, and then me having 4 elite athletes live in my home for free for a year,
Yeah.
and 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 helping my wife making them meals and helping take care of them and everything. You have to grind for what you want. And um so I think from a young coach's standpoint that may not know how to get to this level, reach out to a mentor and then find strategic ways to do things like talking to a university and trying to share a vision with them and get them on board with it. Or there's lots of different ways to make something happen.
Mm.
You just got to look for what your niche might be.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, along with what you're saying, if somebody wants something and they are reaching out to people, usually there is going to be someone along that path who has the power to make decisions, who can see and sense that sense of passion. And I think that's what can also afford the next step to be brought before you.
Totally.
But yeah, I love that. Like you gotta
Yeah.
do the
I mean,
work.
totally. I reached out to 3 coaches. 2 of them said no, and 1 of them said yes.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of the same thing when it comes to one thing people don't know is Project Podium is fully funded by donations. It's not like we do have a lot of things really taken care of here, and people think oh man, USAT is putting a ton of money into that, and they did to get it started. But then, especially during COVID and all of that, for us to stay sustainable, it took finding people that could understand our passion and what we're trying to accomplish, and want to lock arms with us and do it together. And I get told no 9 out of 10 times when I ask people for donations, but those 1 out of 10 people that will be willing to give us a donation is now what's helping make this probably the best funded program
Mm,
in the world for under 23-year-old men.
yeah. If you ever want to give me their name and address to, I'm just kidding. But good for you, man. That's awesome. Well, Parker, thank you so much for taking the time. Would definitely love to have you on again, especially as we progress throughout the years and we get closer to LA 2028. But all the best to you. And I just really appreciate you taking the time to let me dive into your life a bit and understand what's been going on.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much to Parker for coming on the pod and allowing me to get a deeper understanding about who he is and the things that he is working on. Obviously, if you listen to the full episode and you made it to this point, you will realize that Parker is a very hardworking man. Obviously, has good friends that he has fostered over the years and is quite the powerhouse when it comes to mentorship and coaching. So make sure to go follow him on Instagram and check out everything that the USAT Project Podium team is doing and the athletes that are involved with it, and also with the Super Tri racing team, Stars and Stripes. It's pretty cool stuff. And it is new, and I love new because I love entrepreneurship, and what more can be said? So when asking finally a little piece of advice from Parker on, basically what can you do if you want to get into that elite level coaching series or really anything, I think this is really good advice for that. Find some people who you think could be good mentors, reach out to them practically, tell them what you're interested in, see what sticks. You're probably going to get some no's before you get some yeses. But follow that through, do the work. And it doesn't mean you have to do it perfectly. And it doesn't mean you have to do it all the time. But if you do work hard, good things happen to those who seek. And I believe that they will find what they're looking for. So continue to do that. Reach out to good people. Surround yourself with good friends. If you made it to this point in the podcast, though, I just want to say thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here. I cannot believe, I know I keep saying it, we are over 100 episodes, and I look forward to episode 1000. I am that committed. So if you are committed as well, you can sign up for our newsletter at the stupidquestions.show website, or check out the links in the description below where you can sign up for the same things. If you also want to support the podcast, would super appreciate it. You can do that there for as little as $1 a month. So thank you guys so much for your support. Really appreciate you being here. This is a really fun job of mine, and I look forward to talking to you in the next one. See ya.